All right, let's get right into it. If you've got a groundbreaking new medical device, how do you actually get it to the people who need it? Well, in the Western world, there are two main roads you can take. And for any company, it's a huge decision, a real showdown between the American FDA and the European CE Mark. We hear about these amazing new medical inventions all the time, right? But have you ever really thought about how that idea goes from a brilliant concept in a lab to an actual life-saving tool in a hospital? How do we know it's safe? And more importantly, how do we know it actually works? Well, the truth is, every single one of those devices, from something as simple as a tongue depressor to something as incredibly complex as an artificial heart, has to get through this giant, complicated regulatory maze. It's a system designed to protect all of us. And for the people creating these devices, it is the single biggest mountain they have to climb. To really get this, we've got to look at the two biggest players in the game, the United States and the European Union. They both have the exact same goal, patient safety. But wow, they have built two totally different gateways to get there. And believe me, the stakes are enormous. Getting that green light isn't just about saving lives, it's a massive business opportunity. We're talking about a combined market that is worth over $340 billion a year. That's a huge pie. So who exactly holds the keys to these gateways? Let's meet the regulators. And right away, you're going to see they have fundamentally different ways of thinking about this whole process. Over in the US, you've got one central gatekeeper for everything, the FDA. Every single application has to pass through their doors. But the EU, it does things differently. It uses this whole network of independent companies called notified bodies. So think of it this way. The FDA is a single bouncer at the front door, while the EU has a bunch of certified inspectors who come to you and audit your work to make sure you're following the rules. Now, zero in on that bottom row, core focus. This right here is probably the most important difference. The FDA is focused on both safety and effectiveness. That means they ask, does this thing actually create the medical result it's supposed to? The EU, on the other hand, focuses on safety and performance. They ask, does this device do what the manufacturer says it will do, and does it do it reliably? It sounds like a small difference in wording, but trust me, it changes everything. Okay, so with that in mind, let's actually walk through the journey. What does a company have to do to get their device from a blueprint into a doctor's hands? In the US, for most devices, the main road is called the 510K pathway. And the key to this whole thing is one word, comparison. The very first thing you do isn't prove your device works from the ground up. No, you have to find a similar device, they call it a predicate, that's already on the market. Then your job is just to prove that your new device is substantially equivalent. Basically, that it's just as safe and effective as the old one. The European Union's approach? Totally different. It's not really a straight path, it's more like a massive, comprehensive checklist. To earn that CE mark, you have to build this thing called a technical file. And we're not talking about a couple of pages, it is a giant mountain of evidence that proves your device meets every single rule. And part of that is the big one, a mandatory clinical evaluation, which we're going to talk about right now. And that brings us to what is arguably the single biggest difference between these two systems, how you actually prove your device is ready for patients. It all comes down to the evidence. This pretty much sums up the entire logic of the FDA's 510K system. The argument isn't necessarily, hey, my device works because I have all this new data. It's more like, my device is so much like this other device that you already approved that mine must be safe and effective too. It's a clever way to speed things up, but you can see how it's fundamentally based on what's already been done in the past. Now, compare that to the EU. In Europe, that clinical evaluation is mandatory for every single device. It doesn't matter if there are a dozen similar products out there, you have to bring the receipts. You have to show the clinical data that proves your specific device is safe and performs the way you claim. You can't just ride on someone else's coattail. Okay, so let's say a device gets the green light. It's on the market. Is that it? Of course not. The job isn't done. Both systems have rules for keeping an eye on these devices once they're out in the real world. In the US, the system is mainly reactive. If an incident happens that could have caused serious injury or death, the manufacturer has to report it. But the EU system is built to be more proactive. It's not just about reporting bad things after they happen. Companies have to actively look for trends in their data and submit regular safety reports, even if everything seems fine. That's a huge difference when it comes to catching a problem before it becomes a crisis. So, if you're the CEO of a medical device company, you've got a really big decision on your hands. All these differences in philosophy and paperwork and evidence, it all boils down to one critical question. Where do you go first? So, why would you choose the FDA route? Well, for one, if the US is your biggest market, that's a no-brainer. But crucially, it's the best path if you have a really solid predicate device to compare yours to. This can often be the fastest way to get your product out there, especially if you're still in the process of gathering a lot of new clinical data. On the flip side, launching in the EU first makes a ton of sense if you're thinking globally from day one. A CE mark gets you into 30 countries all at once. This is the path you take when you've already done the hard work, you have strong clinical data in your back pocket, and you want to build a rock-solid foundation that will make it easier to get approved in other countries down the line. But here is where things get really interesting. These two very different paths, well, they might be starting to merge. The FDA is getting ready to adopt a quality standard called ISO 13485. Now, why does that matter? Because that's the exact same standard that has been the backbone of the EU system for years. It's a sign that the two systems are learning from each other, and the future might look a lot more harmonized. And that leaves us with a really important question for the future of medicine. As technology just keeps getting more and more advanced, think AI diagnostics, custom 3D printed implants, which system is really set up to handle true game-changing innovation? Is it the one that looks backwards for comparison, or is it the one that demands you prove your performance no matter what came before it?